Alright, welcome back. Thanks for tuning in as we continue to build out this workshop. On today's video, we're going to turn this nice open space into two by building a wall right here. I've already laid out where we're going to build the wall. You can see that along here on the taped up line. And we're going to start by attaching a framework of 2x4s all the way around, leaving an opening for the door, and then start putting in the braces after. So I just wanted to show you guys how I'm attaching the 2x4s to the floor and the walls and the ceiling. These guys, which are kind of like hollow nails that kind of expand. And the benefit of these is that you just drill a hole that is just slightly longer than that. And what I'm doing here is that I can actually drill straight through the 2x4 and into the concrete and then hammer these in as I go. So you just drill a hole, hammer them in. The benefit of that is I don't need to drill all the holes in the 2x4 first, mark the ground or the ceiling or the floor, drill the holes in the concrete, put in plastic plugs, and then hope that I manage to line up all the holes. I can just line up, drill the hole, hammer in this, move on, without ever having to take the 2x4 off again. So now that the first beam is in, this is where the door is gonna go, so we're gonna have that as a separate piece. The next step now is to start attaching the same 2x4s to the walls, and then eventually the ceiling. So the next step is to figure out the height of the next 2x4, which is gonna go from the top of this 2x4 up towards the ceiling. And of course, I could just measure that the old-fashioned way, but a really nice tool that makes the job much easier, especially if you have high ceilings, is one of these laser measurement tools. And all you gotta do is put that there, make sure it points up towards the ceiling. So that's 2.726 meters. I'm also gonna subtract the height of one 2x4 so that the top 2x4 can rest on the one that's going on the wall here. That's gonna make the next step much easier since I'm doing this alone. 2.726, and as I said, we're gonna subtract the height of the 2x4 that is gonna go up towards the ceiling. And if you don't want to do the math, you can just take a scrap piece, line it up with the mark, and then make a new one on the other side. So we'll cut this and then attach it to the wall. We're gonna have to cut out a little notch for these wires. I'm gonna make sure to cut out enough so that we don't put any strain on the wires and that I can potentially run more wires through the wall if I'll ever need to do that. I'm pretty quickly just gonna mark this up and cut it out with the miter saw, and then I'll be right back. That one is in and attached really well. Next step is the ceiling. Same thing again as with the wall. I've got two cables that I need to make small little notches for. Okay. The plan now is that I've cut the notches out of the 2x4 that is going up towards the ceiling to accommodate for the two wires. I've also cut one of the uprights here to the right length and just randomly attached it to the long 2x4. So now you can enjoy watching me trying to wrestle this thing up and over that one over there. Okay, what you just saw me struggling with was my plan not working at all. It was way too hard to wedge that thing up there while they both were attached. So what I ended up doing was, because there's a little bit of an overhang right there, I ended up managing to wedge it like barely in there and then quickly run over and put that one in. And what I also did was that I measured out the spacing for these beams. So they're exactly 60 centimeters spaced apart, center to center. This one is now level both sides, so I'm gonna start with attaching that one, and then I'm gonna anchor the top one into the ceiling. so I figured out how long this piece needs to be to match the one on the floor. And it's gonna be a little bit hard to just hold it here and try to hold it straight as well without it just falling down. So I'm gonna temporarily attach it with just a couple of screws, and then we can put in our 2 anchors. I decided to double up on the 2x4s here because there's so much stuff in the wall here. The channel for the cables here was just wide enough for one 2x4, and also the air line up here was sticking out so much so that it was just easier to put another 2x4 in. The rest here shouldn't be any problem. So what I'm gonna do next is put in the 2 braces here and then see how many of the uprights I can put in before I run out of wood, because that's all I got left. That went pretty well. Unfortunately, I'm out of materials for today. It's Sunday and it's past 9 o'clock, so I'm not gonna get any more right now. I still do have some pieces left that are not long enough for the uprights, but I'm gonna use those to make some braces that go in between. The reason why I'm putting those braces in is because the standard drywall size here in Norway is 2.4 meters, and my ceiling height is just over 3 meters, so I'm gonna have to join 2 pieces of drywall together to form a full wall. I'm also gonna put 2 layers of drywall on to increase the sound insulation a little bit, and that's why I'm gonna put those braces in both in the top and in the bottom. And I'm just gonna use up all the materials I've got now, and then tomorrow I'll get more. Okay, so next day I just went and bought some materials, and we're gonna quickly put the rest of the wall structure in. So now that the framework is done, the next step is gonna be to put the first layer of the plasterboard on. Okay, so that didn't take long before I discovered my first mistake. So the center distances between the uprights are supposed to be 60, which they are, but in order for the plasterboard to have something to attach to, the first one I think should have been closer, because now if I push this all the way, this doesn't have anything to screw into. So I'll just have to start with this centered on that beam, and then the rest of the board should line up, and then we'll figure out how to fix that later. I'm now at the point where this sheet is too long. This is the door opening. So what I'm gonna do now is just use a knife and score the back side here, and then hopefully that should break in a clean line. Just use this as a door. So for the last piece that's going on the other side of the wall, the ventilation sits a little bit lower than a full sheet, so I marked up where I need to cut it, and I'm gonna cut it the same way that we just trimmed off that piece. this piece is done. I had to cut out the slots for the airline and the cables. I've also cut out this little notch out of both sides. That is so that the piece that will go in up top here has something to bolt into on both sides. Next step is to make this one, and then we're gonna start filling in the top. Okay, that's most of the wall done. I'm still missing a little piece right here, which I'm gonna make. This magically appeared. Fits pretty well, and we're gonna pretend that that's the first one I made. Now on to the other side. How much are you willing to bet that this thing doesn't fit? That's not too bad for the first try. Wonder if the other side fits. Let's get some screws in it before it decides not to fit anymore. Not gonna lie, I'm a little bit surprised that that worked as well as it did, and that was legit the first try. Obviously there's some small gaps around here. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use that same caulking that I used around the edge, and I'm gonna fill all these gaps, and also I'm gonna fill all the small gaps in between the sheets that I put up now. Not gonna worry about the finish at all, because there's another layer of plasterboard going on top of this because of the sound. So we're gonna do that first, and then we're gonna put the second layer of plasterboard on. It's now time for the second and luckily final layer of plasterboard. For the next layer, we're gonna offset the plasterboards with the width of one stud. We're also gonna offset them height-wise, meaning that where these two boards join right here, that's now gonna be at the bottom. And instead of starting with a full sheet, like we did here, we're gonna start with half a sheet so that these boards will join here and here. And that will ensure that it's both structurally and sound-wise as best as we can get it. So the first thing I'm gonna do is to measure out the length of one plasterboard from the ceiling down here so that I know where they're gonna be joining. This way I can just put the big boards on top of the short boards that I'm gonna cut and attach first. Okay, that was the last piece of drywall that is going up. The next step will be to deal with these screws and the unevenness that is in the wall. And we're gonna do that with this stuff. And with a couple of these. These boards come with a little indentation on each side of the board, which gives a nice little spot for the filler to fill in so that it's easier to hide the screws and get a nice even transition between the two boards. However, in the screws that we put in on the middle of the boards, it's very important that you screw them in past the surface of the board so that it's easier to fill them and get a nice even surface after. So I'm by no means any professional at this, but I think the way to do it is to get some on there and then just drag it up. And that should fill in the gap in between these two sheets and cover up the screws really nicely. And the seam down here will be a little bit harder to fix. Here it's really important that you make sure that nothing is sticking out because you don't have that same indentation as on the sides of the boards. I just went over it with a little bit of sandpaper, super quick, and then it's just about trying to smooth out the transition between the two boards. That feels better. It was getting really dusty in here. So the wall isn't dry yet, so I can't sand or put another layer on top of that. But what I can do is start to put the insulation on the other side of the wall. So this is the insulation I'm going to use. And with any sort of luck, this stuff should be perfectly sized to fit in between those two studs. Okay, let's see if this fits. Look at that. That works pretty well. I'll have to cut the top ones, but that's gonna be fine. I'm guessing I can use that for the top and bottom pieces. And I guess I can just cut the whole stack in one go, right? That went pretty quickly. All in all, the whole wall was just over 30 minutes. And since I've never done that before, I'm pretty happy with it. So hopefully that should help a lot with the insulation of the sound. Regarding what's going on this wall, I have no idea. This is seam and loose inside, so we'll just have to wait and see what they end up doing. That's gonna be it for this episode, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Click the subscribe button if you want to see more of this kind of stuff. We're gonna continue to build out this workshop. Soon we're gonna start making some shop furniture and some other really cool projects. Tune in for the next episode where we're gonna finish up the wall and put in the door, and then we'll see how much all that sound insulation and all that really helped. Again, thank you so much for watching. See you next time.